two, I think.
All right.
It's two.
Well, it's not gonna be up now.
I'll look it up tomorrow and find out, now that I know where to
No, it's
find it.
gone.
Here. We don't have it up there, Bill.
Yeah, we do.
Where?
Number 7.
The Kenny Lofton pickup was just in time. Good with something for Pat. The day he goes down with a hammy, an hour.
I don't
after
either.
the game. Actually, the game was still on.
Change it
I was
in
watching
two-way.
TV.
I don't see a problem.
Around the 7th inning of
I didn't
that
see a
game,
problem. I went over there too. I didn't see a
they were
problem.
interviewing.
I walked over there. I walked over there.
Him keeping it
For no
one way on
I
this
think
side
Bobby
and that
Hill's
side,
going
I'd
to
say
play the game later.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be confusing if you use.
I think so too.
Please rise for the pledge of flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the time to open our hearts, a time to reflect, a time to give praise, and a time to give thanks. Give all of us the foresight to make a better world with peace, love, respect, and friendship. Amen.
Amen.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Stafford.
Here.
Alderman Lincoln.
Here.
Alderman Sahaski.
Here.
Alderman Weston.
Here.
Alderman Cavallaro.
Here.
Alderman Thompson.
Here.
City Attorney David Hawthorne.
Here.
All present except for 6th Ward Amendment.
Thank you. Tonight is not just an ordinary night for the council, because we have an honored guest with us, a young man that has been out of the country, one of our own that's been doing what needs to be done to make this world a better place. And we have a resolution of honor that I would like to read at this time. Whereas the United States of America, with its allies, is currently engaged overseas in Operation Iraqi Freedom and has committed their armed forces of the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines to free the Iraqi people from the suffering and oppression of a brutal dictatorship that they have endured by the former Iraqi regime. And whereas every day these young men and women sacrifice their lives to protect our freedom and the freedom throughout the world. And whereas the city of Fulton is extremely proud of a local Marine, Sergeant Elijah Kite, who is currently home on leave and graces us with his presence at the City of Fulton Common Council meeting of August 5th, 2003. And whereas Sergeant Kaib was deployed to Kuwait with the Marine Air Control Squadron 1, while their responsibility was the Iraqi airspace south of Baghdad. And whereas Sergeant Kaib has served 7.5 years with the Marine Corps and has been deployed 5 years at bases overseas in Japan, Korea, Australia, Guam, and the Middle East. And whereas Sergeant Kaib will soon be leaving the Marines and heading to Alaska, where he'll be studying at the College of Anchorage, and plans to pursue a seat in the state Senate. And whereas Sergeant Kaib is the son of Douglas and Judy Kaib of Fulton and Robert and Frances Ordway of Auburndale, Florida. And whereas the mayor, along with the Common Council and the citizens of the city of Fulton, are extremely proud of all the young men and women from all branches of service who risk their lives every day to protect us from the tentacles of evil that spread throughout the world. Now, I, Michael K. Stafford, Mayor of the City of Fulton, present to you Sergeant Elijah J. Kite with this resolution of honor on behalf of myself and the Common Council and the citizens of the City of Fulton, and we offer our sincere gratitude and prayers to you for your service to our country. Next item.
Whereas Robert S. Heppel passed from this life on June 26, 2003 at St. Anthony's Hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. Whereas Robert S. Heppel was born in Montreal, Canada, resided in Fulton, New York for most of his life, and lived in Florida for the past 9 years. Whereas as a Fulton resident, he worked for Seal Wright for 25 years as a dispatcher for the Oswego County and a dispatcher for the Oswego County Sheriff's Department. And whereas Robert S. Heppel was a member of the Holy Family Church in Florida and was an usher for the Immaculate Conception Church in Fulton. And whereas Mr. Heppel was a scoutmaster for the Immaculate Conception Church Troop 57, a member of the Knights of Columbus, and a past member of the Fulton Elks Club. Whereas Mr. Heppel was very active in the Republican Party, serving as alderman of the 6th Ward in Fulton for 8 years, during which he was instrumental in the refurbishing of Amberium Park in Fulton. And whereas Mr. Heppel also served as an Oswego County committeeman for 15 years. And whereas Robert S. Heppel is survived by his wife Norma Heppel of Florida, a son Douglas Heppel of Fulton, a daughter Yvonne Obsansky of Seminole, Florida, 3 sisters, Cecile Christopher of Valney, Carmen Barone, and Frances Foley, both of Fulton, 4 granddaughters, 2 great-grandsons, and several nieces and nephews. And whereas the mayor, members of the Common Council, members of the community, his family and friends, will sorely miss this fine man who touched so many lives. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, members of the Common Council, share a great sense of loss with his family and friends, and do with deepest regret take official notice of the loss of this very special man. And be it further resolved that this resolution of respect be spread upon the official records of this Common Council meeting of August 5th, 2003, and copies of it transmitted to the immediate family of the late Robert S. Heppel.
Motion?
Mayor, I'd like to move that.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Whereas Officer Kurt Brown retired from the Fulton Police Department after 20 years of service. And whereas Kurt Brown joined the Fulton Police Department on July 18, 1983, after serving as Airman Aircraft Security Guard with the United States Air Force. And whereas he served as Dare Officer for the 2000-2002 school years, instructing 5th grade classes in the Fulton School District. And whereas Kurt was a recipient of the city's Exceptional Duty Award for his role in both DARE and firearms programs. He served as a firearms instructor at the Central New York Police Academy, working with Deputy David Mason to revamp the Academy's firearms training program, and was selected as a lead firearms instructor for the Central New York Police Academy in Onondaga County in 1999. Kurt was also an instructor for the Division of Criminal Justice Services in presenting a firearms instructor's course. Whereas Officer Brown has worked as a part-time police officer for the Village of Phoenix, and upon his retirement from the Fulton Police Department will continue to work for the Village of Phoenix as a part-time police officer, as well as the Central New York Police Academy firearms instructor. And whereas Officer Brown's father, Gaylord Brown, was also a police officer in the Fulton Police Department from 1961 until his death in 1984. Collectively, Officer Brown and his father served the city of Fulton for 42 years. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, members of the Common Council, and the Fulton Police Department, all city employees recognize the excellent record of service by Officer Brown and wish him and his family our deepest gratitude. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of recognition be spread upon the official minutes and record of the city of Fulton, and a copy of it forwarded to the Officer Kurt Brown and his family.
Motion?
I'll move it. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Whereas Frank Abbott retired from the Fulton Fire Department on July 19, 2003 after 20 years service. Whereas Frank Abbott was hired in July 1983 and was promoted to the rank of captain in April 1997. Whereas he was instrumental in establishing and overseeing the fire-related youth program in the Fulton Fire Department, a program that works with children who may be involved with playing with fire. And whereas this program involves the parents in this program with the focus on correcting a problem before it develops into a more serious matter. And whereas Captain Abbott in 1997 received the Exceptional Duty Award for his involvement with the FRI program, and whereas Captain Abbott was very active in the fire department fire cause and origin team. And whereas Captain Abbott during 1998 took the position of acting assistant fire chief due to a vacancy in the department, where he fulfilled that position until the vacancy was filled in April of 1999. Whereas in 2002, Frank received the Honorable Service Award for his diligence in fire prevention and safety awareness. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor, members of the Common Council, the Fulton Fire Department, all city employees recognize the excellent record of service by Captain Abbott and wish him and his family our deepest gratitude. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of recognition be spread upon the official minutes and a record of the city of Fulton, and a copy of it be forwarded to Officer Captain Frank Abbott and his family.
I'd like to move that too.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried.
Your Honor,
Yes.
at this time, I'd like to ask that we move item number 12 up to next on the agenda, as Mr. Crook has a meeting that he has to attend in Oswego. It's a very important meeting. He needs to attend, so if we could move that up, I'd appreciate it.
I think we can do that. So we'll go to item 12 on the agenda.
I told him to cook.
Whereas the city clerk was authorized and directed to advertise for a public hearing to be held on August 5th, 2003 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers relative to a proposed right-of-way request submitted by Mr. John Crook to place a fence with an arbor over the sidewalk leading to his home at 172 South First Street, Fulton, New York. Mayor Stafford will declare this public hearing open.
Is there anyone in the audience that cares to speak on this issue? Mr. Crook.
First of all, thanks for moving that up. Here's a letter that I sent based on the right-of-way law to all the people on the list that was given by Steve Lund. There was only one that did not get the letter because he said to send it to the state of New York, and I wasn't exactly sure where in the state of New York to send it. I have return receipts that all my neighbors have gotten a copy of this letter. And basically what I want to do, there was an old fence there. I took the old fence down and want to replace it with an arbor and a white picket fence in the same location that the old fence was at. You all have diagrams of where you've seen where I want to do this. It'd be about 3 feet from the curb. I have a letter that you can look at from the Friends of History that do not have a problem with this, in support of this, and also you received one from the library board. So I'd appreciate your support. I think it will make the neighborhood look nice and add to it.
Now, this has gone, you've gone before the Planning Commission?
Planning Commission approved this.
Any questions from the council?
No?
Is there anyone in the audience, anyone else in the audience who wants to speak on this issue? Call for a motion to close public hearing.
I'll offer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. City Clerk.
Now therefore be it resolved that the right-of-way request submitted by Mr. John Crook to place a fence with an arbor over the sidewalk leading to his home at 172 South First Street is hereby approved.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item.
Resolved the city clerk's report for April 2003 in the amount of $5,692.71, and May 2003 in the amount of $10,950.21 is hereby received, approved, and placed on file.
Motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved that the minutes of the council meetings of July 15th and July 22nd, 2003 are hereby approved as per attached.
Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved that the mayor, the city attorney, the city chamberlain, and city clerk be authorized to attend the 48th New York State Conference of Mayors Fall Training School to be held on Monday, September 15th through Friday, September 19th in Lake Placid, New York. Said training school is a budgeted item.
Motion?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item.
Whereas an informational hearing was held on Tuesday, July 5th, 2003 in the council chambers regarding a proposal to consider changing the areas of Cayuga, Utica, Buffalo, and South 3rd Streets from one-way streets into two-way streets. Whereas the informational meeting was duly advertised by the city clerk to give all citizens a chance to give their written or oral comments regarding this proposal. Whereas the mayor opened the informational hearing to all in attendance, and after hearing all comments regarding this proposal, thereafter asked for a motion to close the informational hearing, which was offered by Alderman Woodward and seconded by Alderman Thompson and unanimously carried. Whereas the Common Council voted to table this proposal for a vote at this Common Council meeting of August 5th, 2003.
We have received one piece of additional information. It's been supplied to you. One of the questions came up as to the State Department of Transportation having a problem with this, and they have no objection to allowing the two-way traffic on the streets as requested.
Mayor, there's a few people that I see who were not at the last meeting. Do they have an opportunity to say something before this?
That's why I didn't call for a vote on it at this point in time. I was going to also just bring up, I received one telephone call on this matter since the last meeting. That was from Dr. Talents. He is concerned about the loss of parking on the street, on 3rd Street, and on the 300 block of Utica Street if these two streets are modified to two-way traffic. He feels that will really cause a problem in that area, especially for the church traffic. Now, is there anyone else here tonight that would care to speak on this issue? This isn't a public hearing, but if anybody has an opinion on this, please come forward to the microphone and let us know who you are and your feelings.
Hi, I'm Diane Nethercott, and we live at the corner of South 4th and Buffalo. And we have a number of concerns. Didn't know about the last meeting until after we got back from vacation. And we've been quite concerned about the number of accidents that have been on our corner just in the 5 years that we've lived there, and thought that the one-way streets were part of the concern. But then as we look at it, anytime there is a service or Friday night bingo or anything that's happening at the Immaculate Conception Church, South Buffalo gets completely crowded with cars on both sides, and if that becomes a one-way street or a two-way street, it will be extremely difficult to navigate. It's very difficult now when just going one direction when there are cars on both sides of the street. That's also the side of the park where the playground is, and the playground is in the process of being redeveloped and added to. We've seen children run into the street from that side, and concerned again if you've got two-way traffic that's already too crowded, and the number of children that are there. We also read in the paper that Buffalo may become the driver's testing station, and we have a concern about that. We know our neighbors on the other side of the park who live in a residential neighborhood are not real happy with the driver's testing being on their side of the park, and we're not going to be very happy if it moves to our side of the park either, for a number of reasons. People standing around waiting for their kids to get done with their test, standing in your yard, and also because there are a number of children who who play on that playground, and you just add more activity to that street. My husband is the pastor of one of the churches that's in that neighborhood, and I don't know if he wants to say more about the parking that relates to our church parking.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess my wife is looking up here.
She more or less introduced you, yeah.
They do things like that, don't they?
David Nethercott. I guess I share some of Brent Talent's concerns. In the wintertime, the snowbanks tend to crowd the parking as it is. I know that folks who use Dr. Talent's business sometimes already park in our church lot because it's convenient for them. And my main concern, however, would be with Buffalo Street. I'm very concerned about the accidents that already take place there because of it being one way. We've had at least 3 bad accidents in the last several years. It seems to me that the one-way street could be greatly improved with some better marking of the street. Because if you come south on South 3rd Street and take a right on Buffalo towards South 4th Street, there's hardly anything to tell you that you're doing the wrong thing. And I think cars that do that...
You mean turn left?
No, if you're going south on South 3rd Street...
Or you mean north on South
Pardon
3rd
me,
Street?
north on South 3rd Street and take a right on Buffalo, there's hardly anything to warn you that you're doing the wrong thing. Thank you, that's true. I wish I knew more about what the specific plans were, you know, where it's going to be parking on both sides of the street, this kind of thing. I guess I would wish at least for some considerations here and there. I know it's kind of an all or nothing kind of a thing, but I would hope that the safety concerns are addressed once again. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Initially I came with the idea that probably, just for the sake of equity, I mean, there's churches and businesses all around the city of Fulton, and I don't think there's one-way parking or one-way streets or, it's on-street parking modifications made for all the other businesses and churches in the city. But, the issues raised seem to be valid, so I don't know, it's going to be a difficult decision. I would like to see a consistent, street arrangement in the city. It's a little easier for everyone. Maybe avoid the accidents and making the mistakes, as Dave Nethercott said. But, if it was two-way, that I think some of those issues, wouldn't be a problem. So I don't know. It's going to be a difficult decision. As far as the driver's test location being moved, yeah, that's a tough one too. And I guess that's not really your concern, but that's going to be something that has to go up to the state, county, and state probably. So, but it would have to be a two-way street for that to happen. So, we're going to have to. We've been deciding, hearing the issues over the past month. So, but I would be in favor of seeing the two-way streets consistently applied throughout the city, wherever they are. I can't think of too many other places where we have that kind of an arrangement of one-way streets.
No, I think that's unique to that area right now. It's one of the few areas left where there are one-way streets.
Thank you.
Have you received any?
Oh, yeah. Received a lot. I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may. I'd like to separate the two issues that are all wrapped up in one package right now. Right now, one issue is, will the one-way streets become two-way? Yes or no? And the second thing that is kind of in there is the movement of the driver's test from in front of Mike's house to in front of Mr. and Mrs. Nethercott's house. I think that moving the driver testing place could be done a lot easier by just making a phone call. I talked to George Williams a year ago, the county clerk, and he gave me the impression it was just a matter of he and the guy from DOT in Syracuse agreeing on a different place. And when Mike and the park committee had discussed moving it, It was brought up with a couple of different potential places. Now there's a sign in front of Misha that says driver's license testing is in front of the park on Academy Street, because they had looked at putting it there because 4th Street is a little bit wider. Chief Spawn didn't like it because they wanted it wider because all the ambulances go up and down there. I think that if the county clerk and the guy from the DOT get together again, they can find another place quite easily. And so I'd like to see that separated from the plan, if that's possible, instead of having this resolution go, and part of that resolution being the movement of the test site.
That isn't in,
You don't dictate that anyway.
It's not in there.
we,
I thought it was in there, and
No,
that's
it's-
part of the plan that Sheila had brought out.
That was part of the traffic study, they looked at that, but I don't think that you...
that isn't done by ordinance
Right,
or
you can't
resolution.
force The county clerk essentially.
Right,
handles it.
and he said that, again, he's been more than willing to move it to really, well, I would say anywhere we want to put it, but the last few places we had suggested, they nixed it, every one, for whatever the various reasons are. They kind of like it where it is now on Academy, because you go straight by, for one block and you're at 481. They like it there. But there are enough other corners in town where if you go straight, you're at 481. So I think just by making a phone call to George and asking him to...
Good turn, I don't think they go straight.
That's what the guy from Syracuse said. Was it the reason he liked it that spot? Because they go right past your house,
I think
and they're at 481 and they turn
They go
right.
right to 481.
Okay.
I'm just the messenger. So I think by asking the county clerk to get together with the DOT again and come up with maybe a short list of a half a dozen potential places that are not both in front of the Schroeder's house or in front of the Nethercotts or in front of the park or in front of your house or not in my backyard.
So the bottom line is if this was passed, it would just make the Buffalo Street one other possibility, because that would be two-way. Council can't tell the county clerk to do it there, but it still could happen if you pass it.
That could be recommended.
Make a phone call.
But, yeah, that is definitely a separate issue. There's no doubt in it. It is not in the,
Well, the traffic study recommends that it be moved to 3rd and Buffalo, right?
Yes, the traffic study recommends it.
But this resolution doesn't necessarily implement that piece of the traffic
no,
study?
no. This just talks about one-way streets to two-way streets.
Okay. In that case, I'll give the county clerk a call tomorrow, and I'll ask him, I think the guy's name is Garcia, that works for DOT in Syracuse. Ask him to get together with him and come up with a list of a half a dozen that we can run past, say, everybody on the council, because I'm sure, they might come up with one in Bobsworth, God forbid.
Well, I think anything that any list we come up with needs to be reviewed by the chief.
Second suggestion?
So the issue that we're discussing right now is only proposal to change Cayuga, Utica, Buffalo, and South 3rd Street from one-way to two-way streets.
Yes, now getting back to your original question before I blabbed forever. Yes, I did get a lot of phone calls. Not one of them was in support of doing this. And, with the accidents at the corner of 4th and Buffalo, my wife was one of them, where somebody was going the wrong way down Buffalo and whacked her on 4th, and the other lady got out of the car and said, "How come you didn't stop?" She said, "Because I didn't have a stop sign." And the other lady said, "Well, I didn't either." And she said, "Because you're going the wrong way." I know there have been accidents there. There have been several. And they're usually not little fender benders, because people go 30, 35 down 4th Street. And it depends on where you get onto Buffalo. If you're turning out of the parking lot at the church, or if you're coming off of 3rd Street, you can get even more of a running start. But there have been several accidents there.
Accidents caused because they're one-way?
Accidents caused because at the time, at least when Nancy was in her accident, when you pulled out of the church parking lot, if you were on the east side of the Immaculate Conception Church and hit Buffalo Street, there was not a sign there that said one-way westbound. So the person turned left. You can't do that. Now there's a sign there, and that's why that sign is there. But there have been accidents mainly because of people going the wrong way down the one-way street. I know the Chamber of Commerce has called me, as well as called Ron Woodward, saying that people already go up the hill the wrong way on Utica Street. Alice Sabota was here last time, and she says people go up the hill the wrong way on Buffalo Street, off of 481. So people are already going the wrong way.
Well, from what Dr. Talents expressed to me was the 200 block of either Utica or Buffalo did not seem to be a problem, wouldn't be a problem with two-way traffic, because not that many people park on the street.
Yeah, he had offered that as maybe as a compromise to leave the 200 blocks of all of those streets or to make those as two-way.
Make those two-way.
So that people could get up the hill
and
on
leave
all
the
of,
300 block one-way.
and I would not have a problem with that. But Sheila Simpson was here and said it's all or none, at least as far as the traffic department is concerned, from a consistency point of view.
It would make it difficult. Do you want to make a motion?
I do not want to make a motion. I would allow somebody else to, but I would not.
Are we still in a discussion?
Yes.
I think for consistency, and I know the traffic department spent an awful lot of time on it, and they expressed to us the sincerity that making this change would be beneficial, but at the same time, they realized that they would have to do an awful lot of signage, and they were indicated to us that the signage would hopefully be the correct remedy for the situation. So I think that the consistency is something that we don't have a situation like this in any other part of the city. The streets aren't any narrower than many other parts of the city, so I think that the two-way street is probably a good idea. And I can understand what each one of the people are saying as to what their particular concern is, but I think that the traffic department did indicate to us that if they did start this and open this up, they would certainly keep an eye on it, and if it didn't work, they would be, subject to modification.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I want to say a few things. I follow Alderman Weston with consistency, but I do have a concern with the park there, the church services, I believe at Immaculate Conception, and down from Dr. Talents there. Is there any way that could remain a one-way, and going around the corner from him remain a one-way? Or is that going to be a big problem? That's my concern.
The proposal is to change all of the one-way streets to two-way at this point in time. That is what is proposed. That is based on the traffic study from the traffic department.
Right. I just want to note my concern.
Any further discussion?
I just mentioned that I thought the traffic department did an excellent job, and I know change is hard to come by sometimes, and there are concerns. I recall, excuse me, back in 95 or 96, on, did you say it was Academy Street between 2nd and 1st, next to where Claudette's flower shop is and the church down there. That was one way, and it was changed to two-way for similar reasons, and it's been that way since, and it's worked out fine. I think the traffic department intends to do, well, as a matter of fact, I think they put out through the city clerk's office and hopefully through the news medium pictures of, or a scenario of what this was going to look like and the kind of signage that was going up. So hopefully everybody is kind of well versed, but it's going to take time for everyone to get acclimated. The park issue, you've got all three streets now two-way. You're talking about one more. I understand the concern for the kids, the young folks playing in the park. A lot of this has to come down to traffic control in general, speed, stopping at stop signs, not stopping at stop signs, etc. I don't think it has anything to do with the direction of the streets, myself. So perhaps we need more enforcement in that regard. Speed is certainly a major issue. I still today, when I drive through Phoenix in the village of Liverpool, people do the speed limit because it's enforced, and they know it's going to be enforced. I guess we need to do that a little more strongly here in our town, so they know that if they exceed the speed limit, they're going to get ticketed. To me, that's the issue. It's not the direction of the street, it's the drivers. So I guess I'm saying I'm in favor of this, and if the resolution comes to the floor, I will vote yes.
Any further discussion? City Clerk, please read the rest of the resolution.
Whereas the Common Council voted to table this proposal for a vote at this council meeting of August 5th. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposal to change the areas of Cayuga, Utica, Buffalo, and South 3rd Streets from one-way streets into two-way streets is hereby approved.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With my stated concerns, I'll vote no.
No. No.
No?
No.
Can I do a roll call?
Let's do a roll call to make sure we have the right vote.
Alderman Lincoln?
No.
Alderman Sahaski?
No, with stated concerns?
Alderman Weston?
Yes.
Alderman Cavallaro?
Yes.
Alderman Thompson?
No.
The motion is defeated.
Thank you.
I'm first.
Next item.
Whereas the city clerk was authorized and directed to advertise for a public hearing for this meeting of August 5th relative to a proposed local law to amend Title 14, Section 240, entitled Payment of Taxes by adding a new Section D entitled Administrative Hearing. Mayor Stafford will declare the public hearing open.
Is there anyone in the audience that cares to speak on this issue?
Well, perhaps we need to explain what we're...
I can read what the proposed section consists of. It's under assessment and taxation, Section 240, payment of taxes. This would add subsection D, administrative hearing. When all or any portion of real property taxes due are not paid on or before February 15th, interest and penalties shall accrue at the rates specified in sections 240A or B. The property owner is entitled to request relief from the interest and penalties by requesting an administrative hearing. The administrative hearing shall be held before the city chamberlain, mayor, and the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee of the Common Council. Upon completion of the administrative hearing, the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee, by a majority vote, is hereby authorized to waive the interest and penalties accrued in the event that they determine the request for relief by the property owner is justified. Why we're putting this in place is we have nothing on the books right now to take care of these situations. So this will give us a procedure to go through and be able to have hearings. And if the property owner can come in and prove their justification for not having to pay the interest and penalties, then it can be waived. Right now, we have no process to do that. Any questions? On the council?
I still have the same question that I had last time. That is, if I request a hearing on March 1st, in theory, my penalties will stop pending my hearing. My hearing comes up April 15th and I'm denied. When do the penalties start picking up again? Because unlike the water bill, where they can just go shut you off, with property taxes, you can go 3 years without paying them. Do I get my 45 days of relief from the day I request relief to the day of my hearing? Or do I Do they continue up until the day of the hearing?
That can be, rather than put this into the charter, that can be done through a resolution deciding on what the procedure would be for that, rather than put something into the charter. This is just a basic, the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee can work out their ground rules
Okay.
and what can be done in that case, so it doesn't
It's
clutter
like I
up
asked
the charter.
before, I just didn't want to get into a spot where if somebody had requested their hearing and the clock stops and a month goes by, they get their hearing and are denied, well, if the clock doesn't start again, I could save a lot of money because it adds up.
It'll have to start.
Every month again.
It would have to start again, yeah, under those circumstances. Anything else?
That's all.
Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? City Clerk.
Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed local law amending Title 14, Section 240, entitled Payment of Taxes by adding the new subsection D entitled Administrative Hearing is hereby approved.
Motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Whereas the city clerk was authorized and directed to advertise for a public hearing for this meeting of August 5th relative to a proposed right-of-way request submitted by Mr. Chris Adkins to abandon his existing driveway and to construct a new driveway at 120 West 3rd Street North. Mayor Stafford will declare the hearing open.
Mr. Atkins here?
Yes. I plan on move this driveway for a couple of reasons, actually. I got my tenants, there's not enough room for 2 cars to park. My tenants have 2 cars, and they probably have to park on the sidewalk the way the driveway's set up, and they've got 2 warnings for tickets so far. That was the first reason, and the second reason, I got trees that are over the tops of those cars also, and branches have been falling off, and I don't want to be paying for windows and stuff in my tenants' cars and stuff. So, and the driveway that's there is actually not that great of a driveway. It looks like something somebody kind of just put there. I like just to move it over to get both cars in front of the sidewalk, and, and have a nice, get both the cars in front of the sidewalk so they're not on the sidewalk anymore, so it leaves that open.
And then you would put, as we talked, because you're in my ward and I represent you, you would put the existing driveway that's between the 2 trees, you put that back to green space, right?
Correct, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that driveway would be just taken out and replaced with grass.
There is enough space between the sidewalk and the building to allow parking?
Yes.
Where the sidewalk wouldn't be blocked?
Between the sidewalk and the house, yes, there is. I pulled a couple cars up there and put my friend's bigger truck, and it did fit fine. So, yeah, I did sort of kind of, measure it up and stuff, so.
Anybody in the council have any questions?
I would urge an affirmative vote on Mr. Atkins' behalf. I also want to point out that, I took a tour throughout the city and a lot of corner lots because I have another one coming up tonight too. And there are a lot of homes that sit on corners that have driveways on 2 sides of 2 different streets, like Walrod, 3rd Street, Lyman, and Atlantic Ave as such. And there are no problems there with any existing driveway issues whatsoever. So I do not see any problem with this.
Is there anyone in the audience that is here to speak on this issue? Thank you very much.
I'd like to say something. I have somewhat of a real concern. We get minutes from the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission holds a hearing and has the applicant come before them with the different proposals. In this particular case, the Planning Commission ruled that they denied the application, and they have good reasons. And I think sometimes, unless the council is fully informed as to what those reasons are. I think sometimes we're in an unfair advantage or disadvantage in that we aren't able to really make a good decision based on what the Planning Commission has heard. And also, I think my concern also is if indeed an applicant is denied, then there really is no recourse as to what changes that the applicant might make, because the Planning Commission has not asked him or her as to what changes he eventually will make. Where if it's accepted, then there's certain stipulations and certain requirements that the Planning Commission makes. So I think sometimes the procedure is faulted in a way, because we don't really, are we really in a position to vote yes or no based on the information that we have? So I really have a concern.
I would also suggest that I have a concern too, and I placed a call to our council to ask a couple of questions, one of which was pretty basic, because apparently we have a difference of opinion between a couple of our city people as to who owns the right-of-way. And Dave Hawthorne wrote a memo back in August of 26th indicating that the property owner, if his deed reads such, owns the right-of-way, and therefore has certain rights in that right-of-way, but the city can regulate what happens there. So if that's correct, and I assume it is, Dave, today as well as 1998, that's one question, hopefully, that's put to bed, because many people have asked that question. The other concern I have is one recent case that I'm aware of that was given approval by the Planning Commission after some changes were made to his initial plan, and the council approved those modifications. Never happened. And there apparently is no enforcement after the fact. So my concerns are these. What enforcement for non-compliance? What requirements, if we want to make requirements, for materials? What criteria for removal of abandoned driveway and the existing curb to replace that curb? Should we have a site plan as part of this process? And should there be penalty fees adopted if they're not followed? My understanding is in the present section of the code, 17754, we do regulate, and there is some criteria, but none of those questions that I just brought up are addressed there. So I would suggest to the council, until we deal with this more clearly and establish more basic criteria, that we have a moratorium on any further right-of-way requests regarding driveways. That would be my request. It's nothing to do with the individuals involved, but we've had some situations that have not proven to work out. And unless we establish that criteria, then the Planning Commission is only going by what their gut feeling is, not by something that the council has established. And again, what enforcement powers exist or should exist, if the council so approves, to make this happen. And if it doesn't happen, what recourse do we have?
Well, I think if that's, Matt?
Absolutely.
I think if that's your concern, then there should be a moratorium on all building in the city of Fulton, on all development in the city of Fulton, because with the site plan process, if the new burned area that came in, they had nice pictures, trees they're going to put in, all the stuff they're going to do. If they didn't do what they said they were going to do, then they're there is no teeth in the site plan review process. So to single out driveway renovation, replacement, addition, expansion, et cetera, versus any other thing that goes through the site plan process, I think is, I don't want to say discriminatory, but there's no difference, at least from that point of view.
Well, that issue
Well,
by
how many-
memorandum from Alderman Weston has been addressed in terms of looking at the whole site plan procedure because there is no teeth.
Sure. I mean, how many months did we go after the guy that bought the KBC property there? And, you know, to try to get him to put in green space, green space, green space, green space. It went on months and months and months because there are no teeth in the site plan process.
Well, I think the intention of my letter was to the Planning Commission was to look into those kind of things, because that's what we have to do. We're asking people to do certain things, and then we're not giving them a time frame. So it's not, it's ineffective. So.
Well, we're taking up time from citizen here would like to speak.
I'd like to address this issue on behalf of my son-in-law and my daughter. They're trying to improve their property over there. They're trying to make it look nice. They're trying to move this driveway to make it a nice blacktop driveway, whatever, okay? I live on the United Street Speedway, and I can walk within 5 blocks and find you 30 code violations. You've got cars parked on sidewalks. They're overhauling them right on the sidewalks, and you're trying to turn these people down from improving their house, you, for one. And people across the street from me turned their whole yard into a driveway. They didn't have to come to a planning board. They did it in one day. This is right on Oneida Street. And I don't understand why you give a young couple a hard time like this. That's another reason for people to move out of this city. I've lived here all my life, and now I see what goes on. It's,
I think we're trying to improve things. I think we're trying to have some standards that we can look up to. Well, that's what's happened, and we don't want that to happen anymore.
We're trying to improve it. You don't understand that. You don't get off the bus. I look every day. I walk the bridges every day, and I see it's terrible.
Anyone else care to speak on this issue?
One thing I'd like to say is if you plan on putting these off for another month or so, one of the things I wanted to do tonight was ask permission for a cement driveway. It's taken me 2 months now to do this, get the permission to do this. If I have to wait another month, I may not be able to put the driveway in, as it takes a good 6 or 8 weeks for the cement to set up, to be able to park on the driveway. So I'd like to, you take that into consideration before you put this off.
As again, I would like to offer an affirmative vote on this tonight if we could.
As soon as we're done with the hearing, then we will have a vote.
Well, I think it would only be fair if Joe's talking about moratorium that would not start tonight. These people have already come to the Planning Commission and they're before us.
Process, we need to fix the process, but not hold people, hold.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Does he do his job?
Of course.
Sure he does. Why can I walk within a 3-block area and find all these code violations? I have to call up to City Hall every 3 months or 2 months or month to have the neighbor mow a lawn. Their grass is this high right now. Tell me he's doing his job.
Well, it's a combination of things, and all the aldermen are responsible also. They have a certain, in fact, we've been meeting on a weekly basis to try to improve our code operation.
People get codes passed.
No, that's not true.
Face it, certain people get anything they want.
That's not true. So we're meeting on a weekly basis, and we're going to try to develop a better way of doing our codes. There's no question about it. We understand exactly what you're saying because we're trying.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this issue? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll read the rest of the resolution, please.
Now therefore be it resolved that the right-of-way request submitted by Mr. Chris Adkins to abandon his existing driveway and to construct a new driveway at 120 West 3rd Street North is hereby approved.
That's a roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
I'll second.
Alderman Lincoln.
Yes.
Alderman Sahaski.
Yes.
Alderman Weston.
No.
Alderman Cavallaro.
No.
Alderman Thompson.
Yes.
Motion's carried, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next issue.
Whereas the city clerk was authorized and directed to advertise for a public hearing of this meeting of August 5th relative to a proposed right-of-way request submitted by Mr. James Cannon to enlarge his driveway at 89 Curtis Street, Fulton, New York. Mayor Stafford would declare the hearing open.
Mr. Cannon here.
Here.
Very good, sir.
Started out real simple, honest. After the ice storm, my basement had actually $5,000 worth of damage because part of the problem was if a couple people have seen where I live on Curtis Street, the water runs downhill and my house is next. So part of the problem was my driveway, the person or persons who built the house before me ran the sump pump out into my yard, ran back in my basement, ran out in my yard, ran back in my basement. The driveway tipped towards my house. The slab in the driveway for my garage tipped up and ran back into my basement. So I tore out my entire driveway, which was in patches, and it was a semicircular driveway. Because there was no sidewalk and because I didn't have a clue, I took out the grass between there. It was going to connect the two parts of the sideway. Left the curb alone, took out the grass, didn't realize that was a problem, was informed that's a problem. Starting this, my driveway is still sitting completely unfinished until I get this resolved. I've been through the Planning Commission, and that's where I am now. I've got the notices in here of everybody I was supposed to notify. I got all my certified mail receipts back.
What, can I just ask, what kind of driveway are you going to put back? Another semicircle, or is it going to be just from the road to the
It's just going to be
to the
square
garage?
because the only part that was grass was about, if my high school math still good, is about 300 square feet of grass that sat in the semicircular driveway with the curb, so all the water ran off the driveway, sat there. So it was grass, technically, but 2/3 of it was mud most of the time because all the water sat there because between the driveway and the curb, it had nowhere to go. So I had just taken everything out and was just going to pave it from corner to corner so that it would all be gradually away from my house, not towards my house.
So
it's all
you're
gonna
going to pave the whole thing?
Yes. Right. And I guess my biggest mistake was I'm used to anything on the other side of the sidewalk is the right-of-way. There was no sidewalk, so I didn't think about it when I tore the grass out. So that was the biggest mistake. I didn't even think about a right-of-way until we got involved in this. So.
Is there some discussion about sidewalk being put in over there? Did
During the Planning Commission, they said that part of the problem, when I talked about the grass and taking out, that they might be putting a sidewalk for the school. But, I don't know. Because the school's right up the street from us.
I haven't officially heard anything.
Right.
I haven't either, that's why I asked the question.
There's just a comment during the Planning Commission that they might be, so. And my thought on that was, well, if they're going to tear up my cement or tear up the grass, either way, the grass was going to go, so. I got a head start on it.
Good planning.
Just trying to get a head start, that's all.
The letters from your neighbors, were there any against it?
I haven't received anything back, and nobody's contacted me.
Okay.
But I've got all the receipts, and what I did is I forwarded the letter the city clerk gave to everyone so they'd have the same number.
Okay. I got one phone call and it was positive.
What size garage do you have?
It's a one-car garage. It's on the east side. If you're looking at my house, Curtis Street's on the left side. It's not actually.
I went by and I couldn't remember.
It's actually not used as a garage, it's just storage. It's one car, and it's built onto the house.
My guy was right.
In lieu of the grassy area, just a thought, because of the characteristic of the neighborhood, and I think across the street and down a block from you, there is another semi-circle driveway. Would you be at all willing to put some kind of plantation, whether it be, I want to call it a raised landscaping type with either brick or blocks and or treated lumber to put something in the centerway of that to sort of offset and blend more with the area?
I would do almost anything I was made to do.
No.
But-
Don't we all, though?
Realistically, I was asked a question during the planning meeting, how much would it cost to put the grass back? Well, to dig up the stone I already have, put the grass back, the same thing applies.
No, not dig up anything. This
Right,
could
but
be
to
set
put
on
anything
top
in-
of.
Realistically, without being able you to tell me how much it costs, I wouldn't promise anything. And I would almost imagine the problem is going to be anything I put up is going to have to be four-sided because the only thing between my driveway and the road is the curb. So anything I do
Well,
put up would
it
have
doesn't
to be
have to
four-sided.
be right out that close, but I
Right.
mean somewhere in the vicinity of, maybe between where a sidewalk would exist and toward your house or thereabouts.
To be realistic, what I would do then is I'd be volunteering to put something that's going to make it even harder to plow my driveway than it is. I mean, if anything was recommended to me and I was basically told, to be frank, that I had to do it, I'd be more than happy to do it. If it was realistic and it wasn't expensive, I'd be willing to do it. But my problem right now is realistically is I've gotten rid of the mud and now I can finally plow my driveway. But if I put something there, then I'm back to where I was before. And I couldn't even pile the snow there like I could before on the grass in the winter. I'd have to move it completely around it. So it depends on what it would be. If somebody wants to give me something realistic, I'm more than happy to look at it, but I'm not carte blanche. I'm not sure what I would promise.
Well, the reason I bring it up, there's a parking lot going in on Oneida Street. We just raised a couple of buildings there. And the proposal is that they're going to put in a landscaping of sorts with landscaping brick or blocks and some trees and whatnot. Not necessarily in the ground, okay? And that would sort of give a facade, if you will, to that parking lot. That's why I brought it up.
It would have to depend on what was presented, but right now I can't think of something that would be realistic there that wouldn't have to be, it'd have to be large enough so somebody pulling in the winter wouldn't pull over it. And it would have to be four-sided because otherwise the backside towards the curb would be exposed. So I'd have to look at that.
I think one of the problems we're hearing that Mr. Cannon is bringing up is that there's, and this it has to do with a number of different issues in the city, is there's a lack of education as to what you should do, what you need to do, how do you apply for, and a lot of people don't even realize that they're supposed to go to the Planning Commission and submit a request for a change in their what they consider to be their property, you know, and there's right-of-way issues, and so it's a real problem situation where the public themselves are not sure what they're supposed to do, and somewhat like the gentleman that just left, he's concerned about there's a number of infractions that are supposedly maybe not being enforced. There's a number of changes that are made in our city that we're not aware of until it's done, and then how do we go back and undo that? So I think it's a whole circle of things that we need to keep constantly addressing. Mr. Cannon's situation, the Planning Commission approved his request. So
one of the things I would request is, if I volunteer to help, is to make up an informational sheet to somebody who's in this process. I will tell you that since I've started this, I felt like I was on an Easter egg hunt to go where I needed to go, what I needed to get, who I needed to get from next, what I needed to go. And I think on a 2-page informational sheet, if someone needed to know what they needed to do to get a right-of-way, you could write it up and know you had to go to the city clerk for this. I have to go to the assessors to get the addresses. I have to go to there to pick up the application. I have to contact my alderman. It would take probably an hour to write up an informational sheet that's 2 pages that you could just copy and give to someone. And then you wouldn't have the frustration and, I might even say, a little resentment over the fact that you're trying to figure out the system. I'm a businessman. I'm used to customer service. And this is not a customer service area, I understand, but still, as a taxpayer, it was very difficult for me to figure out I had to go from the planning people to the city clerk to the assessor's office to get the information, to go to my neighbors. It would have been easier if somebody would have handed me a sheet and say, if you'd like to do this, here's the application. This is what you're going to do. You're going to have to go to a planning meeting. You have to go to a city council meeting. There's going to be a hearing. And I wouldn't expect to go. When I first started, I thought, well, I'll fill out the sheet. I'll go to the planning meeting. The next day, we'll be on to business. That was 4 weeks ago. And that wasn't the start. That was just for the planning commission. So I think that I'd be willing to help with that. But that's something.
I appreciate the offer. It always works better when somebody that has been involved works on this, because you're going to see things that others haven't.
Well, Mr. Cannon, it's well taken what you just mentioned, because in the code enforcement meetings that we've been having weekly, we've talked about providing a brochure that indicates a lot of just the normal procedures that people go through on a daily, weekly basis or whatever, and in situations like yours where we can, make it available to people and they know what they're supposed to do.
It's like a relatively easy thing. I'm not from here. I've just been here. We had the house for a year, but everybody knows their neighbors. My neighbors are renters. I know them, but I don't know who owns the building, so I had to go to the assessor's office to get the information to send them the letters. So it's not like I just know everybody.
Right.
And I just say, well, I'll send my letters to Fred, Bob, and George and done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think that would be more user-friendly.
Appreciate your efforts.
Right.
Anyone else?
No?
I'd just like to say a few words to the media, the people that are here. There's a lot of right-of-way requests here today. I've been working on mine for about 2 months, and I've had to go in front of the Common Council, the Planning Board, to do everything as professional, as legal as we could do it. But I just want everybody to know that's here and the people that want to put right-of-ways in, the people do work real hard. And the planning commissioners and the planning committee, they do a real good job. We have a comprehensive plan, what they're trying to go by. If they ask you a few questions on what you're trying to do, it's only for the better. Give the people a chance. It'll work out for the best. But that's what it's all about. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
City Clerk.
Now therefore be it resolved, the right-of-way request submitted by Mr. James Cannon to enlarge his driveway at 89 Curtis Street is hereby approved.
All right, ask for a roll call vote again.
Yes.
Please.
Well, first, do we have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Lincoln.
Yes.
Alderman Sahaski.
Yes.
Alderman Weston.
Be consistent with when I consider the support of the Planning Commission's recommendations, yes.
Alderman Cavallaro.
I too would, I guess, have to go along with the Planning Commission, but I would like to, Mr. Cannon, where'd you go? If I may, I'd like to come meet with you and talk about that possibility of, see what we can do. So I'll vote yes.
Alderman Thompson.
No.
Motion is carried, Your Honor.
That was no.
Next item.
Whereas the city clerk was authorized, directed to advertise for a public hearing for this meeting of August 5th relative to a proposed right-of-way request submitted by Mr. Stephen Dexter to add a new driveway at 202 West 3rd Street North. Mayor Stafford will declare the hearing open.
I would just like to ask for an affirmative vote of the council on this one also. Mr. Dexter lives in my ward. I went over and took a look at the situation. Right now, he's parking his vehicle on the part that he wants to improve. He does not have room enough where his single-family garage is to do it as well as he could where he's parking his vehicle on the opposite side of his property located at Lyman and West 3rd Street North. That's all I'd like to say at this point.
As he mentioned, I do live on a corner lot. When I bought the house, there's currently right now a single wide driveway in front of a single detached one-car garage. There's not enough room to park 2 vehicles there without parking across the sidewalk. So I've been parking on the other side of my house where there's plenty of room to park my truck there. And every year in the spring, the mud gets in the sidewalk, it's out in the street. You know, I try to go out and scrape it up and everything, but I would like to put a cement driveway where I'm parking my truck, my vehicle right now. It would make the property look better, would make less of a mess each spring. And I just think it would make everything look better.
You don't want to widen your existing driveway?
I didn't want to do that for a couple of reasons. That's what I use right now for our yard. That's where my kids play. I like to keep as much of that as I can. Obviously, I don't want my kids playing in the driveway, somebody can pull in there.
And you don't allow your kids to play over on the side of the house that
Where
you're
I'm
going to put
parking my
this?
truck,
Right.
no. Both doors of my house exit out into between the house and the garage. So there's nothing over on the other side of my house right now besides my truck.
Any questions from the council? Anyone in the audience to speak on this issue? Okay. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? City clerk.
Now therefore be it resolved that the right-of-way request submitted by Mr. Stephen Dexter to add a new driveway at 202 West 3rd Street North is hereby approved.
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, ask for a roll call.
Roll call vote, please.
Thank you.
Alderman Lincoln.
Yes.
Alderman Sahaski.
Yes.
Alderman Weston.
No.
Alderman Cavallaro.
No.
Alderman Thompson.
You just can't write this stuff. Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. Next item.
Next item will be 13 because we moved 12. Resolved that the city clerk be authorized and directed to advertise for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, August 19th, relative to a proposed local law to amend subsection 165-31.1 of the Vehicle and Traffic Ordinance of the City of Fulton relative to the parking of oversized vehicles.
Mayor, I saw that the two changes that came up last time are in here, so I'd like to move this.
That's why it's back on. We've made the adjustments.
I'd like to make the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Whereas Civil Service Employees Association City of Fulton Unit President Ronald Edick did request a reclassification of the position of engineering helper to engineering technician and did submit a job classification questionnaire to the Fulton Municipal Civil Service Commission. And whereas the Fulton Municipal Civil Service Commission did unanimously approve the reclassification of the position of engineering helper to engineering technician. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council does hereby approve the reclassification of the position of engineering helper to engineering technician for the City of Fulton Engineering Department. The rate of pay for the position of engineering technician shall be determined through collective bargaining agreement negotiations between the City of Fulton and the CSEA City of Fulton unit.
Can I ask for a question on this? What is the sliding scale between what his job classification is now and what it's going to be once?
It has been determined yet, John. The new rate has not been determined. That has to be determined through contract negotiations.
There isn't one already established.
We don't have one. We're establishing the position tonight.
So it still could be the rate of engineering helper.
It could be. It will probably be, because of the complexity of the job, it'll probably go up equal with another technician type, but that is open to negotiations. We have to negotiate that with the union. All this does is establish a position because the Civil Service Commission found that the tasks that he was doing were more in line with that of an engineering technician than those of an engineering helper. The job classification was just archaic. So that's all we're doing. We're not giving anybody an increase at this time. That's something that has to be negotiated. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move it. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Resolved that the Common Council refer to the Planning Commission a right-of-way request submitted by Jennifer Dowd, who resides at 520 West First Street, 2 parking spots in the city right-of-way.
Motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I have one thing that I would like to bring up. tonight. I received a letter from a concerned business person, and I'll try to read this. Mr. Mayor, just a quick check on dealers. New car business in Fulton is down. Used car business down. New car business Oswego up. Used car business Oswego up. Even though people from Fulton pay same sales tax wherever they go, they may think they don't. We are losing business. We people in the field deal on a day-to-day basis. We know before anyone else knows. Check for yourself. New car business up in Phoenix, used car business up in Phoenix. So I would ask for a little assistance from the press here to help our dealers. Used cars, new car, whatever. Sales tax on the purchase of a vehicle depends on where you live and what the sales tax is where you live. So people from outside of the city of Fulton can come in and purchase here, and they do not pay the higher sales tax. It is the residents of this city that pay this higher sales tax. Now, that is on vehicles. I don't know if it's on anything else, but any vehicles, and I don't want our dealers put at an unfair advantage here, or a disadvantage from people that live outside the city. It appears that possibly somebody is putting misinformation out that no matter where you live, if you buy a vehicle in the city of Fulton, you're going to pay a higher sales tax. That is not fact. And if you could get any information out to help these folks, I would certainly appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience that has any other business to bring before the council? On the council.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
I'll speak for the other two.
Something
Normally does.
Yeah, they just, 30 seconds. Okay, this is a quick 30-second. I was very pleased to see in the Post-Standard on Monday morning, as part of the editorial column that's written, there was a letter from the chairman of the board of Nestle Corporation, and it was interesting to read that as far as he was concerned, that anything that the city did or the county or the state or anybody else to keep the Nestle facility here and operating was just not going to happen. That it would be a short-term fix, and their long-term investment procedures were such that they were closing the plant. So as much as we didn't want that to happen, you've got to let everybody know in the public that the city does care, that the council cares, the mayor cares. We certainly want to keep all the industry that we can in the city, but sometimes we just have nothing, no control whatsoever when a business decision's made, and that's it. The second thing I would ask the mayor to just briefly, if he'd like to, he's talked to the council about the changes at the parking lot downtown, and maybe if he could somewhat tell the rest of the public as to what's going on, the conversations that he's had with the downtown business merchants, and the proposal for the parking spaces and 2-hour limits, etc.
We just had a meeting yesterday morning in regards to the parking downtown in the lot as it is completed, because we are going to have to change the legislation to go along with what we need down there. So we invited the merchants and the business owners from downtown together and worked with them. We had a proposal, and we modified the proposal, and for the most part, the parking spaces that end up on the perimeter of the parking lot are going to be 2-hour, and I think there's going to be 42 or 43 2-hour spots and the rest of the interior of the parking lot is going to be the unlimited parking, unlimited except for nights. We don't allow people to spend the night in there, especially in wintertime. This worked out for everyone. What we have found is we have a definite mix downtown now. We have some retail that requires 2-hour parking for their customers. We have other businesses that they're in and out of their office. They need access to their vehicles to go on assignments, et cetera. And so their needs are different than the retail merchants. So we tried to work with everybody to come up with a plan that is going to work for everybody. And one of the things that I brought up to the business owners is the employees downtown need to park in their assigned parking lots, one of which is Canal View lot up along the river, and the other is down below, north of Oneida Street. It is a large lot that is greatly unused, but that's where the employees need to park to free up the parking in the parking lot and on the streets for the businesses. And I tried to stress that point very much to the business owners. We have some that are very good about this, and we have some that could get a lot better. But the new curbs are supposed to be installed starting next Wednesday. They hope they can finish it in 2 days. And once they get the curbs set, they should be able to pave that within another week from next Wednesday. That's what they're shooting at, depending on how the weather goes. So we should have that back open hopefully by the middle of this month. That's what we're definitely shooting for right now. But Mother Nature has a lot to do with that. But that's where we are right now. Fourth Ward.
Well, Dave, I don't know if you anticipated discussing this at this point with regards to the ATM issue.
It's up to you guys.
Well, I didn't know what you had in mind. You said tonight's meeting, proposed contract. Did you want
They
to
would
talk
like
about?
to get into contract with us, and there's a couple issues there that I'm not, I can certainly look at the legal issues, but like the big part is the dollar figure. I can't address that. I don't know if anybody's taken the time to look and see what other places, what's comparable. I have no idea. No, I haven't heard from them recently, but last I knew, they were anxious to get this resolved and finalized.
Did you hear from, either you or the mayor hear from Jim Hartman? Because I talked to him last week.
I saw him today. He's going to be in to see us tomorrow.
So he's
about
still wanting to get this done soon, I assume, right? Yeah.
Well, his concerns about the DOT and their right-of-way 75 foot in from the center of the road and how that would affect the location of the ATM unit.
Okay, I wasn't aware. I knew that issue had come up before, and I referred them to our DOT contact in Mexico that we've used for similar issues, and I don't know if they followed through with that or not.
He went to Syracuse, apparently, not Mexico.
I mentioned that to him today, that the correct way of doing it was going through the Mexico office.
So that could not be a problem.
I guess for now, you guys just digest what's there, and if they, for some reason, it gets to a point where they want it acted on real quickly, if we had to, we could call a special meeting. Hopefully by then, we can have some better ideas to what comparable fees are associated with getting those.
And the other thing was, at the last meeting, we talked about the foreclosures, and each alderman was going to hopefully make a recommendation to you or to the council whether we wanted to auction them or do private sale.
And I get probably 4 or 5 calls a week from people referred to me mostly by the Chamberlain's office saying, what are you guys going to do with these properties? And pretty soon going to start giving out your numbers, because all I say is that the aldermen have to decide that, and I told a lot of people that I thought it was going to be decided tonight, but I have heard nothing from any of you as to any that you want sold privately, so nothing was put on the agenda for that purpose tonight.
Do we want to go with auction on all of those?
I think that's the best way to do a
Auction. Yeah.
We
We really ought to get moving on it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
If it doesn't move at auction and then somebody comes forward, we'll go from there.
Sure. I think we want to, there was talk about using a professional auctioneer rather than doing it
Definitely.
as part of
Oh,
one of
good,
these meetings.
good.
Definitely.
Mhm.
And it might not be a bad idea to put signs on each property,
Yeah, you mentioned that
Sure.
before.
so there's no question.
Contact an auctioneer and
Call the county and see who they use.
Yeah, why don't we do that, put a resolution together for next time,
Okay.
as far as when and where it might make most sense to do it.
Anything else, Joe?
No, I think that's it.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
I'm good.
Entertain motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Move it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn.
Joe, you want to do that now?
Yeah.